Hello, I'm Ilene Wood, and this is today's episode of Bag Lunch. Today we're going to talk about a designer whose name was known as Roberta di Camerino, or at least that's the name that she applied to her designs and the company. The designer's real name was Juliana Cohn, and she was married to a man whose surname was Camerino, and she chose the first name Roberta for her line because it was the name of her favorite movie, which starred Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire back when she opened the company in 1945. So she later was known as Roberta di Camerino, but her true name was Juliana. Now, she began the company, as I mentioned, in 1945, and their strength was doing lovely satchel-shaped handbags with a solid frame. And what made her bags most special and unusual was that most of them were fashioned out of velvet and home decorative fabrics. So if you look at this bag, it's a combination of silk and velvet in almost a deco stripe in a lipstick pink. And her signature R, which looks like a belt buckle and strap, is her logo, which appears on most of her garments and her handbags. Now, I mention garments because she also did some ready-to-wear, but the strength of her line was her handbags. Roberta di Camerino received the Coty Award in 1956. And at that time, she was favored by many celebrities. Her bags were carried by people like Elizabeth Taylor, Gina Lollobrigida, and Isabella Rossellini. Today, her bags have been reintroduced, and current celebrities, people like Madonna, seek her bags. The company went out of business in 1980, but the name was bought and re-released in the early 2000s. Sadly, the company again went out of business in 2008. So all the bags that you find will be vintage. The first one I'm showing you is a lovely bag made out of silk brocade. It's velvet and it's diagonal and straight stripes, and it has a feeling almost like Art Deco. And her signature logo is fashioned out of a leather strap that looks like a belt in the shape of an R. She was best known for her bags, which were made out of designer fabrics. This one has a silk background, but raised velvet in the form of belt buckles, which was part of her logo. This bag is very different and special to me because it shows her sense of imagination. And that is, this velvet bag is done in the shape of alligator scales. So it almost reads like an alligator bag from afar, but it's truly made out of cut velvet. This also has a very unusual frame, and this is a shape she used in a number of her bags. This Roberta di Camerino bag is probably from the late 60s, early 70s, and it has a very op art flavor, plus an unusual closure. The closure is off to one side, and you slide that ball to open the bag. This is one of her signature shapes. It's almost like her version of a Kelly bag. It's a little satchel, and it's got a hard frame, and it reads almost like a Victorian carry bag. It's got a lovely handle that's made out of leather, and it's got dimension. And she uses this interesting hardware that once again feels like what you would see on an antique Victorian piece of luggage. This is another example of the last bag I showed you. And this one is an elongated frame, and the bag is made out of hair calf, which is the hair of a cow. And it's a very flat fur, and It's almost a stand-in for her velvet, but it's truly made out of hair calf. This final Roberta di Camerino bag is perhaps her most iconic design. This is a bag that she did both in this small size and the larger elongated shape you just saw. And it would typically have velvet with a cut velvet design. In this case, it's a round form with a sunburst in the middle. And these bags were often done in multicolor. So while the bag might be black, the velvet might be red or green or blue. Now, this is a bag that I purchased years ago at Barney's after the company was revived in the early 2000s. And Barney's was the exclusive store to carry her bags in New York when it was first introduced. I'm going to say that again. Barney's was the store that had an exclusive arrangement to sell her bags when they were reintroduced in the early 2000s. So thank you for joining us for today's episode of Bag Lunch. Please join us again tomorrow.